Welcome back to The Deep Dive, the show built precisely for you, the learner, where we take the raw material as sources and extract the definitive blueprint of knowledge you need to be thoroughly informed. We skip the noise and jump straight to the insight.
And today, we are immersing ourselves in, well, the dizzying, brilliant, and often very abrasive world of Quentin Tarantino.
It's an immense and complex file we're navigating. I mean, we're talking about an individual who really defies easy categorization.
He does. He's a filmmaker, producer, screenwriter, actor, and now increasingly an author.
Yeah.
The sources consistently point to his massive cultural impact. You have critics like Peter Bogdanovich naming him the single most influential director of his generation.
And that influence isn't just academic, right? It's financially gargantuan.
Oh, absolutely.
His directed films, you know them, they're easily recognizable by that high-octane, almost operatic graphic violence, those incredibly extended, profanity-laced dialogue scenes.
And a relentless commitment to pop culture references.
Exactly. And they've collectively grossed over $1.9 billion worldwide. I mean, that level of success has earned him both immense critical acclaim and a devoted, almost cult-like following that just dissects every single frame.
So our mission today, and this is tailored specifically for you, is to quickly but thoroughly unpack the core components that really define this polarizing career.
We need to identify the specific stylistic rules he established, track his surprising career trajectory from the fringes to the, absolute mainstream.
And maybe most importantly, analyze how his completely unconventional foundational education became this disruptive force that just reshaped Hollywood's expectations in the 1990s and has sustained him ever since.
We're looking for the key nuggets that make him tick, the stories behind the story. Okay, let's unpack this, starting appropriately enough with the very first cinematic inspiration he ever received.
So we begin in Knoxville, Tennessee. Quentin Jerome Tarantino was born on March 27, 1963.
And even his name is just drenched in the sort of genre reverence he would later make famous.
It really is. He was named in part after Quint Asper, a character played by Burt Reynolds in the classic Western TV series Gunsmoke.
That detail is so fitting. It almost feels like foreshadowing for a life that was going to be dedicated to cataloging and reinterpreting cinematic history.
It certainly sets a narrative framework. His background was unconventional from the start. His parents were Connie McHugh, who was of Irish descent and claimed some Cherokee ancestry, and an aspiring actor, Tony Tarantino, who was Italian-American.
And he left before Quentin was even born.
That's right. So when Quentin was 3 in 1966, his mother moved them to Los Angeles. And that's really where his true education began, far, far away from any traditional classroom.
And this is where we find a really crucial insight into his development. The sources note that his mother was uniquely permissive, allowing him to see movies with profoundly mature themes very, very early on.
We're talking about films like Carnal Knowledge in 1971 and Deliverance in 1972.
Think about that for a second. He's absorbing these complex adult narrative structures and often very dark subject matter before he's even 10 years old.
That early exposure isn't just trivia, it's absolutely foundational. It didn't just give him film literacy. It shaped his perspective on violence and mature themes, not as these forbidden topics, but as, standard components of traumatic storytelling. It created a film vocabulary that was already fully formed by the time his peers were watching children's movies.
Yet, for all this intellectual precocity with film, his relationship with traditional education and even his family structure was volatile.
Extremely. At the age of 14, we see his first real attempt at screenwriting. He wrote a script called Captain Peach Fuzz and the Anchovy Bandit,
which was based directly on the 1977 film Smokey and the Bandit.
Exactly. And that initial writing attempt led to an anecdote that has become almost mythological in his personal narrative.
This is the story about his mother.
Yeah. Right? It is. His mother apparently ridiculed his writing skills, suggesting he had no future as a writer. The sources report that in response, he made this fierce, defiant vow. He would never share any of his future wealth with her.
Wow. That moment cemented an almost aggressive independence. So he didn't just drop out of Narbonne High School at 15.
No, he rejected the conventional path entirely, opting for real-world experience.
So that familial critique basically became the fuel for his ambition. It's a great narrative device, whether it's completely true or exaggerated for effect.
Absolutely. And this self-directed, non-traditional path is what truly sets his trajectory apart from his contemporaries who are all following those established film school routes.
Right. So throughout the 1980s, what was he doing?
He held several jobs to pay the bills. usher at an adult movie theater, a recruiter in the aerospace industry. But the period that defines his entire philosophy was the 5 years he spent working at video archives,
The video store in Manhattan Beach, California.
alongside his future collaborator, Roger Avery.
This video store wasn't just a job for him. It was his unofficial film school. He famously distilled his entire philosophy in a single, definitive quote when someone asked if he went to film school.
No, I went to films.
That is the perfect encapsulation of his method. He wasn't learning abstract theory. He was absorbing, organizing, and synthesizing the entire practical history of cinema.
Right. He became locally renowned not just for watching films, but for his encyclopedic knowledge, his ability to spot obscure references, his passionate recommendations. He was learning genre conventions, recognizing the structures that worked.
And developing his own taste, often favoring the pulpy, the forgotten, and the exploitation films that would later just populate his narratives.
So the entire foundation of a $1.9 billion career was built on minimum wage and movie recommendations.
It's incredible. And his first actual paying job in Hollywood in 1986, it just underscores the chaotic nature of his start.
I mean, he worked as a production assistant, again with Roger Avery, on a fitness video.
Dolph Lundgren's Maximum Potential.
You're moving from analyzing French New Wave and blaxploitation to filming workout routines. That is a serious, serious contrast.
And before he directed his debut feature, the sources mentioned he earned a tiny bit of professional acting experience.
He played an Elvis impersonator in a 1988 Golden Girls episode, Sophia's Wedding, Part 1.
And here is where that juxtaposition gets really interesting, because that seemingly insignificant acting role was financially instrumental.
It was. Tarantino estimated the initial pay of about $650, combined with roughly $3,000 in residuals earned over 3 years from reruns.
That was precisely what supported him financially during the critical, lean pre-production phase of Reservoir Dogs.
Think about that. The residual checks from a 2-minute gag roll on a 1980s sitcom were the financial lifeline that sustained the director while he was finalizing the project that would forever change independent cinema.
It's an unbelievable synergy of low culture funding revolutionary high art.
It truly is. And while he was absorbing all these influences and securing that basic funding, he also co-wrote and directed a short film, My Best Friend's Birthday, in 1987.
Which was left uncompleted. But the core material, it wasn't wasted.
Not at all. That early dialogue later found a permanent home in the screenplay for True Romance.
So the true professional breakthrough, the moment that launched the Auteur, was writing the script for Reservoir Dogs.
This project was born out of a very simple, practical suggestion made by producer Lawrence Bender at a barbecue.
Right. Bender encouraged him to stop spinning his wheels and focus on writing a simple, contained, dialogue-driven heist film.
And Tarantino, just empowered by his video archives education, churned out the unformatted screenplay incredibly fast in just 3.5 weeks.
That speed just speaks to how fully formed these ideas were. They'd been marinating in his head for years.
So the next step was securing funding, which is a massive hurdle for a completely unknown first-time director. And this is where Hollywood veteran Harvey Keitel stepped in.
A huge moment.
Keitel read the script, was instantly impressed by the energy in the dialogue, and he committed immediately. Not just as an actor, but as a co-producer.
And that's what helped secure the necessary funding from Live Entertainment. That Keitel endorsement was crucial.
So when Reservoir Dogs premiered at the Sundance Film Festival in January 1992, where Tarantino served as writer, director, and actor,
as the verbose Mr. Brown,
it was an immediate critical sensation. It introduced his style fully formed, gritty, hyper-realized dialogue, nonlinear structure, and a shocking use of stylized violence.
It instantly established him as this completely original voice. But what's interesting is that even as he launched his directing career, he was leveraging his older writing projects to secure his financial footing.
He was. He sold the screenplays for 2 films released in this era. True Romance, directed by Tony Scott in 1993, and Natural Born Killers, released in 1994, directed by Oliver Stone.
And the sources highlight a really critical lesson he learned from Natural Born Killers. Oliver Stone heavily revised the original script.
Right, he transformed it into something Tarantino felt was completely unrecognizable. This led Tarantino to publicly disown the final film, although he retained the mandatory story credit.
And this conflict just underscores how important directorial control was to him. Having seen what happened when his singular vision was diluted by another director, it reinforced his commitment to authorship.
The sources also provide evidence of his mid-90s industry work. noting these uncredited rewrite assignments on major studio films, including It's Pat in 1994, the military thriller Crimson Tide in 1995,
and the high-octane action film The Rock in 1996. The idea that the man known for extended philosophical dialogue was punching up Michael Bay scripts is just fascinating.
But the definitive moment of the decade, the explosion that forever changed independent cinema, was Pulp Fiction.
Following the success of Reservoir Dogs, he was offered big-budget studio films, including Speed and Men in Black.
And he rejected them all. He deliberately sought independence, retreating to Amsterdam to write Pulp Fiction.
And when it was released in 1994, it became a phenomenon, not just a successful film. It amplified his use of graphic violence, but its genius, it lay in the masterful manipulation of nonlinear storylines. It turned 3 distinct stories into one cohesive, fragmented masterpiece.
The accolades were immediate and they were unprecedented. It won the Palme d'Or at Cannes in 1994, cementing its artistic credibility overseas.
Then it won the Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay, which he shared with Roger Avary, who helped develop the story structure. And crucially, it received 5 more Oscar nominations, including Best Picture and Best Director.
The sheer magnitude of the critical praise cannot be overstated. Pulp Fiction became the first film ever to achieve a sweep of the Big 4 Critics Awards.
So that's winning Best Picture from the Los Angeles Film Critics, the National Board of Review, the New York Film Critics Circle, and the National Society of Film Critics.
Yes. And this was just unprecedented for an independent film. It signaled a massive shift in the balance of power in 1990s cinema, proving that indie voices could challenge and dominate the studio system.
And the financial numbers backed the critics up. It went on to gross over $200 billion worldwide on a pretty modest budget.
That momentum carried him through the mid to late 90s with various collaborative projects. In 1995, he contributed to the anthology film 4 Rooms.
He directed and acted in the final, highly self-aware segment, The Man from Hollywood.
This period also solidified his important partnership with director Robert Rodriguez. Tarantino acted in Rodriguez's Desperado in 1995.
And even more famously, he wrote the script for the vampire crime thriller From Dusk Till Dawn, which Rodriguez directed.
And the source materials reveal a fantastic detail about that script sale. It was a paid assignment that Tarantino accepted specifically in exchange for covering the makeup effects used on Reservoir Dogs.
A straight trade of dialogue for gore effects. A very cinematic transaction.
It is. His third directed feature was Jackie Brown in 1997. This was an adaptation of Elmore Leonard's novel Rum Punch, starring the blaxploitation icon Pam Grier.
This was a clear, affectionate homage to the genre he studied so intensely at the video store, moving away from pure crime toward a more character-driven thriller.
And that affection was returned by the original author. Elmore Leonard was famously guarded about adaptations of his work, yet he considered Jackie Brown to be his absolute favorite of the 26 different screen adaptations of his novels and short stories.
That kind of validation, proving he could honor the source material while still making it distinctively his, that speaks volumes about his command of genre.
Okay, let's transition now to the core of his artistry. The recognizable stylistic toolkit that defines a Tarantino film.
And we have to start with the most persistent and controversial element: violence.
His films are frequently saturated with graphic violence, which has drawn consistent criticism since the very start. For example, the sources note that Reservoir Dogs was initially denied certification in the UK, specifically because of the disturbing nature of the torture scene.
And the debate isn't just about the presence of violence, but its stylization. Tarantino has always defended it, moving beyond typical artistic justifications.
He's been strikingly blunt about it, calling the act of portraying it so much fun and stating unequivocally that it affects audiences in a big way.
This suggests his use of violence is less about realistic consequence and more about, aesthetic impact and dramatic punctuation.
Right. He treats it as a cinematic tool, often detached from true emotional consequence, which is what often separates critics. If you look at the data, Reservoir Dogs, despite its reputation, has only 10 on-screen deaths, but 421 profanities.
And you contrast that with Django Unchained,
which featured 262 profanities but resulted in 47 deaths. He balances the verbal aggression with physical aggression, depending on the genre demands of the story.
So moving beyond content, we have the structural element, famously known as nonlinearity or the Tarantino effect. He uses shifting timelines in virtually all his major works: Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs, Kill Bill, The Hateful Eight.
For our listener who knows the structure, we should really analyze the effect. This technique fragments the narrative, compelling you, the audience, to actively piece the story together, which heightens engagement.
In Reservoir Dogs, for example, we see the bloody aftermath of the heist first, and then the film gradually fills in the preceding events.
What effect does starting with the end, with the characters already in moral and physical crisis, have on your judgment as a viewer?
It completely shifts the focus from what happened to why did it happen and who are these people.
Exactly. By showing us the broken consequences first, the ensuing dialogue about Madonna or tip sharing is viewed through the lens of impending doom. It denies us the traditional rising action and thrusts us into an active role of moral evaluation from scene one. It's structural genius that elevates otherwise simple genre material.
And what binds these fragmented, violent worlds together is the signature dialogue, which is unique for its detailed, often mundane conversations filled with popular culture references. This is his literary fingerprint.
It is. The dialogue often serves to ground the fantastical situations in a relatable reality. The quintessential example is the Royale with cheese metric system discussion in Pulp Fiction.
Right. They aren't discussing the heist. They're having a philosophical debate about European differences, which simultaneously serves as necessary character exposition.
Or the opening of Reservoir Dogs, where his own character, Mr. Brown, offers this lengthy, detailed, and completely absurd interpretation of the deeper meaning of Madonna's song, Like a Virgin.
These conversations aren't plot drivers. They are character revelations. They make the professional criminals, the assassins, or the bounty hunters feel real, if highly idiosyncratic.
Even the relaxed chat between Jackie Brown and Max Cherry over coffee, listening to a Delphonics vinyl record and Jackie Brown, it adds crucial texture. These mundane details function like world building, telling you everything about the characters' internal lives without relying on heavy exposition.
And speaking of world building, let's discuss his theory of the interconnected worlds. This isn't just about small Easter eggs. He posits that his entire filmography exists within one of two distinct cinematic universes.
That's a key distinction. He defines the grounded reality, which includes films like Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. These films adhere, more or less, to the real-world laws of physics and consequence.
Then the second universe, the metafictional reality, is the fun part. These are the films that are essentially the fictional movies that the characters in the grounded universe might go watch on a Friday night.
And the examples cited for this metafictional layer are films like Kill Bill or From Dusk Till Dawn. This concept allows him to justify the extreme, hyper-stylized violence, the anime logic, or the complete suspension of disbelief required in those films. They only need to adhere to movie logic, not real-world logic, because within his canon, they are movies.
It's a brilliant postmodern way of structuring a filmography, and he reinforces this interconnectedness through his use of fictional branding.
This is his signature move to avoid traditional product placement while maintaining visual consistency.
Right. We see his made-up brands, Big Kahuna Burger, Red Apple Cigarettes, Jack Rabbit Slims, and Teriyaki Donut, pop up repeatedly across his filmography, sometimes for humor, sometimes just for consistency.
It creates a complete self-referential ecosystem where all his stories live.
Another absolutely vital element is his use of music. He's famous for crafting these distinctive soundtracks, curating often forgotten songs, frequently deep cuts from the 1960s and 70s, that give his scenes an immediate, palpable atmosphere and historical texture.
This curatorial skill is why music is so central to his films. He isn't scoring a scene, he's dropping the audience into a specific time and mood using pre-existing tracks, often ironically. This dedication to cinematic sound design earned him the inaugural Music Plus Film Award at the 16th Critics' Choice Awards in 2011.
We should also touch upon his approach to the craft itself, which contributes to the dense literary feel of his films. He describes his unique writing process as writing the project as a novel first.
Right, which then serves as the exhaustive blueprint for the final film script. This novel-first approach explains why his scripts feel simultaneously overwritten and perfectly formed, lending weight and density to minor characters and details that rarely survive a traditional, lean screenplay process.
He attributes this density to his pen acting like an antenna, allowing dialogue and behavior he's observed or collected over the years to flow out, leading to characters who emerge more or less fully formed.
It speaks to the vast internal catalog he maintains.
And we can't analyze the style without addressing the public spectacle surrounding the prominent feature of feet in his films. When confronted with accusations of having a foot fetish, Tarantino didn't just dismiss it.
No, he folded it back into his cinematic framework. He defended it as good direction, linking his choice directly to established cinematic history by citing other renowned directors who prominently feature feet, including Luis Buñuel, Alfred Hitchcock, and Sofia Coppola.
It's his way of saying, this is a feature of cinema history, not just a personal quirk.
And that defense links directly to his role as an officially recognized film critic. He is an official critic on Rotten Tomatoes and publishes regular director essays on the New Beverly Cinema website. And his critical views are often intentionally provocative.
For instance, he provoked intense debate by calling Jaws the greatest movie of all time.
Clarifying, maybe not the best film, but the best movie ever made, distinguishing between artistic merit and pure entertainment perfection. He also championed Indiana Jones and The Temple of Doom as his favorite Spielberg film, noting its dark edge helped catalyze the creation of the PG-13 rating.
And he's not afraid to defend critical flops either, showing a deep appreciation for director Elaine May's notorious box office disaster Ishtar.
Even more controversially, he asserts that the sequel, Psycho II, is superior to the original 1960 Psycho. This challenges the entire notion of accepted cinematic quality and forces audiences and critics alike to defend their long-held assumptions.
Okay, so moving into the 2000s, Tarantino transitioned from the contained crime genre to this ambitious genre synthesis, beginning with Kill Bill.
This project was based on a character and a revenge plot he and his muse, Uma Thurman, developed years earlier during the filming of Pulp Fiction.
The ambition of the script, combined with just the sheer amount of action, led to an initial cut that clocked in at over 4 hours.
So the decision was made to split it into 2 volumes. Volume 1 released in 2003 and Volume 2 in 2004 for theatrical distribution.
This split created a fascinating duality. He considers them a single film.
But they function almost as 2 distinct halves of a whole. Volume 1 leans heavily into wuxia film conventions, Japanese period dramas, and even anime styling, emphasizing action and pure vengeance.
Then Volume 2 drastically changes tone. It becomes more dialogue-heavy, drawing heavily on spaghetti westerns, and focuses on the character's emotional payoff and past history.
The 2-part release was a commercial risk that paid off creatively, demonstrating his mastery of disparate genres.
Following the exploitation slasher film Death Proof in 2007, he quickly bounced back with Inglourious Basterds in 2009.
An ambitious alternate history World War II film set in Nazi-occupied France. Inglourious Basterds represented a new level of scale and ambition, earning him major Oscar nominations for Best Director and Best Original Screenplay.
He followed this with Django Unchained in 2012, a slave revenge story set in the American Deep South in 1858.
And he coined the style a Southern, articulating a very clear artistic motive. He stated he wanted to address America's horrible, often ignored history of slavery, but he intentionally chose to do so through the lens of genre filmmaking, a spaghetti western structure, rather than making a conventional big-issue movie.
Which allowed him to maintain his signature style while tackling profound historical trauma.
That approach resonated profoundly. Django Unchained became his highest-grossing film to date at the time of its release, showcasing that his controversial style could connect with a massive audience, and it secured him his 2nd Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay.
His 8th film, The Hateful Eight, in 2015, faced serious challenges before production even began. The script was leaked in January 2014 before filming, which infuriated him.
He was so aggrieved by what he viewed as a breach of trust, particularly since he had only shared the script with a few colleagues like Bruce Dern and Michael Madsen, that he almost abandoned the film entirely.
Right, he threatened to publish it solely as a novel instead.
Ultimately, he directed a live reading of that leaked first draft, which featured a different ending, before proceeding with a revised script for filming. But the release itself was another grand cinematic statement that tied back to his cinephilia.
Absolutely. He released The Hateful Eight as a roadshow presentation, utilizing 70mm film format exclusively in specialized theaters before its digital-wide release.
This was a deliberate artistic and political statement, a high-cost commitment to preserving the grand, immersive exhibition style of classic cinema, challenging the industry's rush toward digital projection.
That sets up his 9th film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, in 2019, a comedy drama about the transition from the old studio system to the new Hollywood era in the late 1960s, featuring fictional TV star Rick Dalton and his stunt double Cliff Booth.
And the production of this film marked a major professional and personal shift. Following the Harvey Weinstein allegations, Tarantino severed his long-term professional ties with Weinstein and Miramax, seeking a new distributor, Sony Pictures, for the first time in his career.
The film was a massive success. Premiered at Cannes, earned 10 Oscar nominations, including an Oscar win for Brad Pitt.
Now, regarding future projects, the sources highlight his intention to write and possibly direct an 8-episode TV series called The Movie Critic in 2022. He later adapted this concept into a film script set in 1977 about a porn magazine movie reviewer.
But he ultimately decided not to pursue the project.
And his reasoning reinforces his quality over quantity ethos. He was excited about the writing process, but once he transitioned into pre-production, he realized he wasn't really that excited about dramatizing what I wrote. For him, the passion for execution must align perfectly with the brilliance of the blueprint.
And this brings us to the famous 10-film retirement plan.
This has been a long-standing commitment since 2009. He has been clear about his intention to retire after directing exactly 10 films, famously stating his belief that most directors have horrible last movies, and he wants to ensure his filmography maintains maximum quality and consistency.
And it is essential to remember that he counts the Kill Bill volumes as a single film, which makes Once Upon a Time in Hollywood his 9th directed feature.
This hard limit explains why he has been so meticulous about his recent projects and why he aborted The Movie Critic.
His commitment extends to the exhibition medium itself. He's deeply skeptical of the film industry going fully digital, stating that if theaters stop showing 35mm film, he won't even make it to 60 as a director.
As of January 2025, he is reportedly in no hurry to direct his 10th and final film, prioritizing writing a stage play first.
And in a surprising move related to his retirement plan, he has written and produced the 2026 sequel to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, titled The Adventures of Cliff Booth.
But, and this is key, he explicitly handed the directing duties over to David Fincher, whom he referred to as one of the 2 best directors.
It's a fascinating maneuver. He keeps his writing involvement and continues his character's story, while rigidly adhering to his self-imposed retirement limit on directing only 10 features.
The unique texture and consistent quality of Tarantino's output are often attributed to the trusted network of talent he relies on. He's cultivated what observers call an informal repertory company of actors and technical collaborators.
And the undisputed king of the Tarantino universe is Samuel L. Jackson.
He's appeared in 5 films he directed, plus a 6th he wrote, True Romance. Jackson's ability to handle Tarantino's complex rhythmic dialogue is a key component of the film's success.
Other major players include Zoe Bell, who has amassed 7 roles acting or performing stunts, Michael Madsen in 5 films, and James Parks also in 5 films.
These recurring faces lend a distinctive familiarity and reliability to his universe.
And we absolutely must recognize Uma Thurman, whom Tarantino described as his muse, starring in 3 films, and critically co-developing the foundational concept and personality of the bride character for Kill Bill.
It's not just the consistency of the cast, but the transformative nature of his casting choices. Christoph Waltz, for instance, was relatively unknown in America before Tarantino cast him as Hans Landa in Inglourious Basterds.
And Waltz went on to win back-to-back Best Supporting Actor Oscars for that role and for Django Unchained.
Brad Pitt later won his own Best Supporting Actor Oscar for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
That's a serious record of guiding actors to peak performance. And behind the camera, he maintains equally important partnerships. Robert Richardson has served as his cinematographer on 6 films, ensuring a consistently high visual standard.
But perhaps his most crucial, unsung collaborator was editor Sally Menke. She worked on every one of his films until her death in 2010.
He frequently referred to her as, hands down, my #1 collaborator.
And her skill in weaving together the fragmented, nonlinear timelines of films like Pulp Fiction and Kill Bill was essential to making his structural complexity legible to a mass audience.
Moving past directing, Tarantino has repeatedly used his influence to act as a curator, often leveraging his name to promote niche, independent, and foreign cinema, a direct extension of his video store education.
Right. In 1995, he formed Rolling Thunder Pictures with Miramax. The goal was noble, to release and re-release independent and cult titles, notably bringing Wong Kar-wai's Chungking Express and Lucio Fulci's horror film The Beyond to wider audiences.
But the venture was ahead of its time. It was shut down by Miramax in 1997 due to poor sales.
Despite the failure of that venture, he found a more effective way to champion cinema, using the Quentin Tarantino Presence label. And this branding was enormously effective.
It became a seal of quality and cinematic audacity, He presented films like the Hungarian sports documentary Freedom's Fury in 2006, and significantly the horror film Hostel in 2006, which opened at #1 at the box office thanks in part to his promotion.
He also brought the Chinese martial arts films Iron Monkey and Hero to U.S. audiences, with Hero grossing $53.5 million, which was a remarkable success for a non-English language martial arts film at the time.
That deep commitment to traditional cinema extends directly to his physical presence as a film exhibitor. This is the director literally putting his money where his mouth is.
He purchased the New Beverly Cinema in Los Angeles in 2010, and he didn't just buy it, he took an active managerial role, committing to a specific exhibition standard.
He publicly pledged that as long as I'm alive and as long as I'm rich, the New Beverly will be there, showing films shot on 35mm.
And in 2021, he expanded this dedication by purchasing the Vista Theater in Los Angeles, stating it would also only show movies on 35mm film print. This expensive dedication is his legacy project in action.
Finally, let's just summarize the immense recognition he's earned. He has won the Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay twice, for Pulp Fiction and Django Unchained, solidifying his status as a writer first.
He also holds 2 BAFTA awards and 4 Golden Globe awards, all for screenwriting, plus the Palme d'Or for Pulp Fiction. He was included on the Time 100 list in 2005.
And the ultimate testament to his academic and cultural impact comes from a 2013 survey, which found that Tarantino was the most studied director in the UK,
surpassing long-established cinematic giants like Alfred Hitchcock and Martin Scorsese. His work is recognized as modern canon, demanding critical study.
It's clear his creative voice is singular, but that singular voice also frequently lands him in the center of major cultural storms. We have to pivot now to the critical dialogues and public controversies that have often defined his public image.
And we have to start with the most persistent debate, his use of racial language.
This specific criticism was first publicly and fiercely raised by director Spike Lee in 1997, specifically concerning Pulp Fiction and Jackie Brown.
Right. Lee stated he wasn't against the word itself, but argued that Tarantino seemed, quote, infatuated with that word, suggesting he needed to understand that not all African Americans found its use contextually acceptable or slick.
And Tarantino's defense, which he offered on programs like The Charlie Rose Show, was highly philosophical. It focused on the writer's prerogative and artistic freedom.
It did. He demanded the right to write any character in the world that he wanted, arguing that the attempt to deny him that right because he is white, but allowing black directors to do the same, is itself a form of racism.
He was quoted stating that to suggest that he can't use the language of the characters he creates because he is white, but directors like the Hughes brothers can because they are black, is the heart of racism.
And key collaborators weighed in on his behalf. Samuel L. Jackson defended Tarantino, arguing that in the context of Jackie Brown, which he called a wonderful homage to black exploitation films, the language was truthful to the genre.
Tarantino himself claimed that Jackie Brown was primarily made for black audiences who understood the homage.
But the controversy reignited with immense force with Django Unchained in 2012 due to its depiction of American slavery and the extensive use of racial slurs, which appeared over 100 times in the film.
Spike Lee refused to see it. He publicly tweeted that American slavery was a holocaust, not simply material for a Sergio Leone spaghetti western, criticizing the decision to apply a genre template to such a serious historical trauma.
Shifting to another highly sensitive area, Tarantino faced major criticism for his past connections to and comments regarding abuse allegations against powerful industry figures.
In a 2003 interview on The Howard Stern Show, he controversially defended Roman Polanski's 1977 actions.
In that infamous interview, he suggested Polanski's actions were not rape, controversially stating the 13-year-old victim wanted to have it. When this interview resurfaced in 2018, it generated intense public backlash.
He issued a swift public apology, acknowledging his error and stating he had incorrectly played devil's advocate in the debate for the sake of being provocative 15 years earlier.
He was also inextricably linked to the numerous allegations against his long-term producer and collaborator, Harvey Weinstein.
In 2017, Tarantino admitted publicly that he knew enough to do more than I did, and that he marginalized the incidents, after his then-girlfriend Mira Sorvino told him of Weinstein's advances in the mid-1990s.
This admission of inaction led to massive public scrutiny. Furthermore, Kill Bill star Uma Thurman later revealed that Weinstein had sexually assaulted her and that she had reported this to Tarantino.
And Tarantino confirmed he confronted Weinstein and demanded an apology, banning him from contact with Thurman during the remainder of the film's production.
But he later expressed profound regret for not pressing Weinstein further before the scandal broke in 2017, referring to Weinstein as a fucked-up father figure whom he had once admired.
Beyond these serious ethical debates, Tarantino has a long history of aggressive physical and verbal altercations with peers and the press, underscoring the manic, high-octane aggression often present in his film dialogue.
In 1997, his public feud with Don Murphy, a producer on Natural Born Killers, escalated to physical violence in a West Hollywood restaurant where Tarantino physically assaulted Murphy. This led to a legal settlement.
And then there was the bizarre feud with David Letterman.
Letterman recounted that after joking about an unnamed former girlfriend of Tarantino, the director phoned him, threatening, "I'm going to beat you to death. I'm going to kill you,"
and offered to fight him using bats.
Letterman eventually demanded a public apology before Tarantino promoted Inglourious Basterds on the show, which Tarantino begrudgingly conceded.
The press has also been a target of his unfiltered reactions. In 2013, while promoting Django Unchained in the UK, a Channel 4 news journalist questioned him about the link between movie violence and real-life violence.
And Tarantino's reaction was explosive.
He furiously refused to engage, stating, "I refuse your question. I'm not your slave and you're not my master. You can't make me dance to your tune." It was a highly charged moment.
And widely condemned for the language he used toward a professional journalist. He later clarified his stance, explaining that he finds such discussions about the violence link disrespectful to the memory of those who died in real-life tragedies.
Arguing that the focus should be shifted entirely to tangible issues like gun control and mental health, not media influence.
Even in 2019, during the Cannes press conference for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, he shut down a critical inquiry from a journalist asking why Margot Robbie had so few lines.
His entire response was "I just reject your hypothesis," followed by a tense, definitive silence.
And we have a recent example of this aggressive provocation in the sources. Just last year, in December 2025, during an appearance on Bill Maher's podcast, he sparked harsh criticism from industry peers, including Daniel Day-Lewis.
By publicly disparaging Paul Dano's acting in There Will Be Blood, the sources report he called Dano a weak, uninteresting guy, the weakest male actor in SAG, and used crassly crude language to describe him.
This unvarnished, aggressive, critical style immediately drew public condemnation from industry figures like Dano's co-star Matthew Lillard, who noted that such criticism hurts your feelings. It's a stark example of his persona being as confrontational as his film narratives.
Finally, we must note his very public political stance against police misconduct.
In 2015, he attended a rally against police brutality in New York, stating that as a human being with a conscience, when I see murder, I cannot stand by, and I have to call the murdered, and I have to call the murderers the murderers.
And this statement led directly to police unions across the U.S. calling for a boycott of his upcoming film, The Hateful Eight.
Tarantino clarified his statement afterward, insisting he never implied all cops are not murderers, and specifically referring to high-profile cases of unarmed victims, saying, in those cases in particular that we're talking about, I actually do believe that they were murder.
He stood his ground while attempting to refine the scope of his accusation.
What an intense deep dive into a career defined equally by dazzling creative brilliance and unrelenting public confrontation.
To summarize, he secured his status in the 2000s by consistently synthesizing and elevating genres, exemplified by the martial arts epic Kill Bill, the alternate history of Inglourious Basterds, and the revisionist Southern style of Django Unchained.
And his legacy is inextricably tied to his singular writing voice, affirmed by his 2 Academy Award wins for Best Original Screenplay. But his output is no longer limited to the screen.
No, he has successfully transitioned into authorship, signing a significant 2-book deal with HarperCollins.
In 2021, he published the novelization Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, a novel offering expanded lore and character backstories, followed in 2022 by the film history book Cinema Speculation.
This nonfiction work is heavily inspired by the films of the New Hollywood era, and when you pair it with his newest endeavor, it really solidifies his identity as a working cinephile first, a director second.
He launched the Video Archives podcast in 2022 with his old video store colleague, Roger Avery, where they revisit films they would have rented out back in their old job.
It's the ultimate full-circle moment, tuning his film school into a critical platform.
If we connect all this back to the bigger picture for you, the learner, it becomes clear that Tarantino's career is less about evolving stylistically and much more about continually refining and asserting a singular, distinctive voice.
He is a curator and preservationist as much as he is a creator.
A director whose entire style is rooted in the deep catalog of film history he absorbed from age 7 onward.
And that preservation effort, the fight for the analog experience, that is the critical thread running through his late career. Considering his long-standing and firm plan to retire after his 10th film to ensure a high-quality finish.
Combined with his fierce dedication to cinematic tradition, epitomized by his highly expensive commitment to buying theaters like the New Beverly and the Vista to exclusively screen 35mm film prints, the format he believes is essential for experiencing cinema.
This raises an important question for you, the learner, to consider and mull over. Will Quentin Tarantino's ultimate legacy ultimately be defined not just by the 9 or potentially 10 films he directed, but by his final fierce dedication to preserving the essential analog way those films and cinema generally are experienced?
It's the director fighting against digital modernity, not just with his camera, but with his wallet and his post-retirement plans. It frames his creative departure as a focused preservation effort.
A fascinating thought to wrap up today's deep dive. We hope you feel thoroughly informed and ready to rewatch the Tarantino-verse with a newly critical and appreciative eye.